Welcome back, everyone. Parents at a New Jersey elementary school were jolted recently after a teacher sent a note home with students saying all the kids, mandatory, including the boys, must dress like women for a fashion show celebrating women in history. A portion of the letter said, quote, all students must participate in the activity. If your child is a young man, he does not have to wear a dress or skirt, as there are many time periods where women wore pants or trousers.
What time period was that?
70s.
Meanwhile, the show now canceled after parents complained and some kids cried. But what was the school thinking? Joining us right now, radio host and former teacher, Giordano. Dom, have you ever heard anything like this?
Well, sadly, Burlington County's a hotbed of this, Brian. It is outlandish, and here's today's Philadelphia Daily News. You can see that they have a pretty good sense of how outlandish this is. People just think there's too many things here. The schools do this thing. You guys have seen it. I've seen it a lot, where they say it was all a misunderstanding. We didn't mean to do this. Can you imagine a fashion show, videotape, like a catwalk with little boys walking around with degrees of women's clothing on? What kind of dad is going to say, oh, yeah, I want to be there in the front row for that?
You know, I don't know. I would have had such an outrageous reaction if that letter came home from my kids' school. It's slightly different than when they encourage them to wear their pajamas on Fridays,
right.
Which is,
exactly.
You know, fully acceptable. But here's my issue with it, Dom. If you're going to honor Women's History Month, then why not, you know, teach little boys and girls how to honor each other and how to relate to one another? Or why don't you honor some of the accomplishments of women in history?
Well, you're right, and I've seen some of the 16 pages that were sent home on this, Gretchen, and you had Twiggy and Madonna being honored in here as part of this. Twiggy and Madonna, give me a break. I think Condoleezza Rice should have had 5 pages in there. And it just shows you the inside-the-box, outlandish, these educrats often speaking to each other. They can't see that real people have objections to this stuff.
The principal says no kids complain, but a 9-year-old told the mom of a 9-year-old told FoxNews.com that their son came home crying, saying, please don't make me do this. And it says in there, it figures into your final grade. Now, the superintendent said this is all a big understanding. I wish the letter, which they should say packet, was more comprehensive and clearer. You're not buying it.
No, I'm not buying it. I'm not saying it was a huge conspiracy, but the mom was on with me, Brian, extensively, and she said Women's History Month is in March. How come this was coincided with Day of Silence, which is this Friday, Day of Silence, which is around kids picking up, going for anti-bullying measures against students that are gay? Why was this all coinciding on Friday, the Day of Silence?
Just a coincidence.
And we should mention that the
1 out of a million.
And the name of the superintendent in this area is Michael Livengood. Obviously, he's probably had a lot of phone calls in the last couple of days. You know, something else that bugs me, Dom, is just we have too many months and weeks and days of honor and all that stuff anyway. It just gets so confusing, I think, for young kids.
Well, Gretchen, I taught for about 15 years, and I can tell you the amount of time that is chewed up with all these luncheons that are multicultural, all these Women's History Months and all that, that are continuous. And then when you have No Child Left Behind in schools and you're talking about reading and math, people complain you're teaching to a test.
Exactly.
You're not spending enough time on these things. There's too much diversion. Right. And you know the energy that goes into this as a parent, it's tremendous.
Exactly.
Yep. Third graders were in the middle of this firestorm, and I guess today they learn about share. The name of the school is the Maud Wilkins Elementary School, and they think they've solved this problem, but not before getting a close microscope on it. Thanks so much for joining us, Dom.
Thanks, Brownie.